So, welcome to the Legacy Creation Show. Today, I have a long-term friend, mentor, co-conspirator. We have delivered coach training all over the world together. Zoran Todorovic, Master Certified Coach. Zoran, hey, hello.
Hello, I'm so grateful and happy to be with you today. What a joy and pleasure, and also for us to play on your podcast. Cannot wait to explore, to share, and to see the learning and breakthroughs and observations and conversations you and I are going to have today together.
I love the way, even when we're teaching, we do a lot of this, right? We say, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. Let's see what comes up.
Yes. And I think we're talking about mastery. I think that's one of the key elements of mastery, being able to relax and see what comes up.
It's when somebody asks, could you teach the 3 keys to mastery? It's like, well, I could make 3 up for you.
Exactly. In the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you ask me again tomorrow, it will be 3 different keys to mastery.
Of course. And it's ongoing evolution and transformation. It's really like being able to be, in the moment. I think that's the most important thing, for us. And this is how you and I play, which is absolutely beautiful.
I had to explain to somebody the other day because they told me, I feel so intimidated by the amazing answers and all the wisdom you're giving. And I said, oh, I must have made it sound like I already knew that before you asked the question. They asked this amazing question and I was answering it. I was sort of almost channeling the answer and I was learning as I was speaking.
Yeah.
So I love how we do that when we're together.
Yes. And we're also holding space for one another. I think that's it's important thing. When you are in trust to yourself and somebody else, then you can really become playful.
So let's dive straight into that, because that's language that coaches often ask about. What does it really mean to hold space?
I was talking about this with somebody else on the course a few days ago, and I said we never defined that as a coaching competence, but it should be a coaching competence, holding the space, because we do it a lot. We do it for ourselves, we do it for our children, we do it for our friends. Somebody calls you and tells you, think about me, please. They might not use the language, hold the space for me, but I would say, wish me good luck, or today it's an important meeting, or the coaching client as well, they can ask us to be with them. And I think this is the true unexplored coaching competence that has never been defined from my perspective. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally. And somebody the other day, I was on a coach training and mastering coaching, and somebody said, tell me, how do I hold space? And those of you who are listening would not be able to see me like hunching my shoulders, gripping the air in front of me. And she said, because I'm always so exhausted at the end of holding space. And it was so fascinating because somatically I could see she was holding herself, not really holding space for the other person.
Yeah, exactly. For me, when I think about holding space, it's like, number one, being able to expand, exactly what you said, not contract your shoulders and arms by holding it, but actually expanding into the space around you so that your energy field or your energetic body, so to say, becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And then with that expansion, you have more space to hold space for others and yourself within your own container, right?
Absolutely. It's as much an intention as anything, isn't it? It's for me, it's a standing in love, being absolutely present for that person, witnessing them as the most extraordinary version of themselves, not trying to fix them in any way, not trying to push them forward, but being completely yourself and completely open to whoever they are and seeing what happens in that magical alchemical space.
Yeah. You put it more beautifully than I did. I mean, it's absolutely amazing that, space of unconditional love and full acceptance. And also, I think that this is a skill of tuning into somebody else's energetic needs. So we all have, personal needs, we have existential needs, we have, needs to social needs. But this is also an energetic need. If somebody, it's not present enough in a given moment in the situation, or somebody is not confident enough, or somebody is a little bit nervous about, for example, meeting, what is their energetic need? It's for somebody to be alongside with them in that specific room energetically, right? And so they can feel their presence. So I think that holding space for somebody, it's also being able to sense that need and then literally presence yourself alongside with them while they feel we as a coaches are actually with them in that same room, and we're addressing that energetic need of holding, supporting, being present. Yeah.
I love that. I love the language. I know in the Evolutionary Coach Training Programme, we use that language, don't we, of being alongside your coachee, and you're not sort of you're not in their space, you're in your space, creating an energy field that they have full invitation to step into, that sources for them the empowerment for them to choose, rather than pushes them. Or as coaches, we often hear the language of mirroring.
Yes.
And I think how passive a mirror is, and how when we look in a mirror, we actually see ourselves the way we expect to see ourselves. And I think as a coach, we do so much more than mirroring.
Yes, we do much more, and it's much more dynamic, right? That mirroring process, it's much more present, it's much more multidimensional. And that kind of leads us into that space of holding the space, because again, when you mirror powerfully to somebody, you can also hold the space for them to see themselves through your own eyes, which is lovely competence in coaching.
Yeah, it's like the camera, you're looking at you're looking at a mirror through your own lens, right? Your own filter. And if you don't love yourself, you will see, it's almost like the mirror flashes the bits that you don't like about yourself, right?
Yes.
If you feel like you're somehow not good enough, all you see is those bits. Camera's not doing it. I don't know why I keep calling it camera. The mirror's not doing it. You're doing it. But as a coach, I think we do it more actively, right? We say, hey, Zoran, yeah, you're struggling, but you know what? And I show you your magic.
Yes, yes, exactly. Somebody can show you your magic, witness your magic, and be present. And I think that when we talk about mastery of coaching, that's another one that we are able to witness and show and be with the person from that magical point of view, so they can see that quality of themselves through you as a coach within the coaching process, and then your pure mirror, so to say.
I remember, we've done 10 years now, isn't it, that we've been teaching coaching in China.
Yes.
And I was doing a demo in the beautiful center in Beijing once, and at the end of the coaching session, the coachee was clearly completely transformed. They just looked different. They were beaming, they were relaxed. And the coachee, one of the students said to the coachee, what was the question that Lisa asked which had the biggest impact on you? And the coachee sat there and she thought and she said, I can't remember any of the questions, but what I remember feeling was this overwhelming sense of Lisa seems to believe in me. If this human being believes in me so much, maybe it's time for me to start believing in myself. And it was that feeling, the experience, much more than any skill set, that for her was the transformation.
Yeah. How gorgeous is that? How gorgeous is that? The simple thing of really putting your attention and 100% believing it authentically, so they can feel that your energy, they begin initiated to believe in themselves. I think that's a beautiful example of not only space holding, but also mirroring and believing and being fully present as coach. Yeah.
You remember in the Harry Potter films, there's a magical mirror that shows you what you want to see.
I always wanted to have one of these.
Yeah, right. And I think in a way, it's just dropping in that a coach is sort of that person. They see you the way you most desire and need to be seen in order to deliver on the legacy that you want to create.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And also, you know, as coaches, if we are pure enough to be able to evolve ourselves through our own masterful practices, then we can be that clear, pure mirror that can really see and become that effect that the coachee wants to see, you know. So it's also about us evolving to the level of mastery in ourselves that we can offer that. They can become that Harry Potter mirror ourselves.
Mm. Yeah, not reflecting back what we think the coachee should see. Yeah.
Yeah, magical, fully magical, because if you reflect back what they think coaches should see, then we're coaching from a different point of view. But if you're able to not interfere that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so beautiful because what we're not interfering with, I guess, is their vision. So we might be seeing them a way they're not ready to see themselves yet, or they haven't seen themselves yet. But we're reflecting back the potentiality of who they could be, the seeds that we're seeing in them of who they say they want to be, so that we give attention to those seeds, and those seeds grow in that sunlight of our attention. And the coachee is becoming, just from the, like, mostly from the magic of how we're paying attention to them. And yet we're not doing it. They're doing it, but we're like the sunshine. The plant is growing and we're like the sunshine shining on it, right?
Yes. Yeah, beautiful. That I love that metaphor and love that analogy. Yes, and offering that support and nourishment and encouragement, and you can do it and presencing and believing and witnessing and fertilizing that soil so they can really become the most beautiful version of themselves. It's a great metaphor there.
And I love that the updated ICF competencies include cultivating trust and safety.
Yeah.
I love that cultivation, getting everything ready, treating the soil, planting it, looking after it, seeing how it's growing and adjusting accordingly.
Yes.
So you mentioned about masterful practices outside of the coaching, and the ICF's core coaching competencies now include this brand new competency 2, embodies a coaching mindset, which is so much about the work that you do outside of the coaching session so that you can turn up embodied. So you've been a coach for a very long time. So what are your most masterful practices that bring you to that space of presence?
Yeah, for me, it changed throughout the years. But, at this moment in time in my own evolution, it's meditation and presencing, embodied presence, I would call it. When, I'm able to get into the space of meditating to really calm my mind to the extent that there is no thought left. And then my spirit or my soul can be fully present and embodied in my physical body. And then from that space, showing up in the coaching conversation has been one of the key practices at this moment in time. And then also the other practice that I use, it's to be mindful, it's activating my super coaching powers and knowing that the reason why I'm practicing coaching is to get to understand myself better and to get to activate certain things that I know I have inside of myself that are dormant or sleeping or not available. And that the coaching, it's a vehicle for me to be able to activate those. So embodied presence and activation of the super coaching skills.
I love it. So let's imagine you're sitting down to activate your superpowers. Do you have a magic button you press? How do you activate those superpowers?
Recently, I've been researching a lot around the dormant DNA. And what I found out is that, we live only with two strands of DNA, and our DNA is actually sleeping, so to say. And we have a capacity to activate from 2 strands of DNA into 144 strands of DNA. And this is the reason why, for example, in the scientific research, we say that we're using only a small part of our brain. This is the reason why we said that we're not fully activated within our capacities. A lot of research is done on that. I just don't want to repeat it on this podcast. People who listen, they will know. And for me, pressing the buttons, meaning being in relationship with your own DNA, getting inside of yourself and activating that DNA so that those abilities and skills and mindful awarenesses of who we really are and what is our pure potential, so to say, can be expressed. So literally the meditation of connecting to DNA, looking into DNA, calling it to be activated, and then witnessing what happens with you, what changes and evolution are you experiencing on a daily basis. But the key for me is DNA. Yeah.
I love that you said that, because with all the times we talk and everything, we haven't had that conversation, and we're obviously on a complete parallel path with that right now. Just really finding practices that activate that DNA and all the stuff the scientists call junk DNA that they will soon find out what it really is.
Exactly, because it's not junk. It's about, it's getting in relationship, because and I know that nature doesn't create like that. Nature is a system when everything is interconnected. There is no junk. There is no rubbish. The one bee or insect will make sure that certain things that other plant creates is recycled, consumed. It becomes food for something else. There's never anything in nature that is just left dormant like that. And been told that this is the case. So for me, when you ask what are you practicing right now on the level of mastery, it's getting into that for myself, and then being somebody who is activating this in others through coaching, so that people can witness themselves. They can be like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. I can, like witnessing themselves in this consistent evolution when they can surprise themselves with their possibilities and potential.
Okay, so we could spin off on any of these things. Yes. So I'm going to take your lead in terms of grounding us in the competencies, because
let's do that.
Because I think what we've both found over the years, I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for both of us, is that the core coaching competencies are extraordinary. They're exceptional. They're so powerful. And they're this sort of launch pad almost for truly extraordinary coaching. And that there are so many other things we can layer onto it. But that a lot of people go off those launch pads and actually don't have the foundations in place.
Yeah. Yes.
Don't really know how to do pure non-directive coaching, how to really facilitate transformation in another without saying, and this is what I did, this is how I did it. And we've both always taught the foundations, right? So I think we've kept a love for the foundations, even when we're flying off activating DNA.
Yeah, because it's very important to keep rooted in those foundations, because if we activate DNA but we don't have root or foundation, then it doesn't mean anything. It just becomes something else. It's not coaching any longer. So for me, going back to that, the mindful presence or embodied presence practice, it's one of the foundational practices in coaching. When we are in the state when our mind is so clean, clear, harmonized in ourselves, so that we can then show up in the coaching space fully present, and we can mindfully listen, we can observe, we can ask questions that are really relevant to the coachee and really trust them. So I think that practice, it's so simple but crucially important. Yeah.
And one of the practices that I know you hold really dear, I've definitely learned a lot from you about this, is the practice of self-love, of starting from that. So tell us a bit about how that sits with this idea of embodied presence.
Well, if you don't love yourself, you cannot embody your presence because you're going to resist it. Yeah, I mean, you can't do it. And for me, self-love, it's joyful and sweet. My take on self-love, it's not profound in a way that we have to get into this space of loving ourselves deeply and being very serious. It's more like, how would child giggle about their self-love? If somebody was to ask them, do you love yourself? They would giggle and will tell you, of course I love myself. They don't even think how I love myself. Is it my self-love? It's present. So I like introducing self-love from the joyful, light space. And once when that settles in, when you really love yourself with all of your imperfections, and this is for me the key, loving yourself with all of your imperfections, understanding, but really, really, really looking at yourself and understanding and seeing and saying, I'm never going to be perfect. There's always going to be something that I would love to change, evolve, that I'm not happy with, like maybe it's my hair, maybe it's my aging, maybe it's, how other people perceive it, doesn't matter. But when we are able to really, really see that and love that imperfection, I think that joyful, giggly, light self-love steps in, because it becomes funny. It becomes funny. Then I become silly and funny to myself, and everything else becomes funny, because we understand that this is just a game of consistent evolution. So I hope you got what I was saying. It was a little bit complex, but this is, for me, it's the frequency of joy. It's the most important one for the self-love.
No, we totally got it, because also you're talking at the frequency of it.
Yeah.
So often I hear teachers talk about something that has a specific frequency from a lower frequency.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I have always, from the first moment you answered the phone when I called you, like 20 years ago now, I've always felt that you embody the frequency of what you're saying. You would never sit there and say, now I want to talk to you about the joy of self-love. Like, just like you couldn't do it. You couldn't get yourself into the wrong frequency.
But you see what I mean with self-love as coaches? I mean, it can be profound. And with the spiritual movement, also in coaching, we tend to get very serious about self-love. And I think, it is about that. It's about knowing, understanding, loving our imperfections, loving whatever emerges, and really having fun with that.
Yeah.
And not taking ourselves too seriously. I as a coach, you know our stories from traveling around the world, when people relate to you as a master, that you and I always had a lot of fun with that. We never bought into that, oh my God, I'm now a master, and please follow me. It was most always giggling and laughing and actually getting people to see our imperfections. And this is what mastery truly is, our ability to be so vulnerable and say, hold on a second, we are coaching. Yes, we have maybe the degrees and designations of mastery, but we're still human beings on a journey of self-development. And we also, need to work more on that. And then really having fun with that.
Yeah. We have teased each other so much when we first went to China, and they called us Lisa Master and Zoran Master, or Zor Master for you.
Yeah.
It's so much fun that we've sort of used it as self-deprecating, we've played with it, because I think, we both hold so dear that we are such funny creatures, human beings, and so flawed and so perfect, and in our flaws.
At the same time, so perfect. You see what imperfection, so amazing, so remarkable, but at the same time in unfolding. So for me, that's the mastery of self-love, joy, really, really being joyful and getting that energy in the coaching process. Because I also feel when you coach from the state of joy, what will joy do next? What would love do next? How do you show up in that space when you're truly holding life as sacred and significant, but at the same time, it's a game, then we can play.
And in your work over the years, and both of us, we've worked from the sort of high-end C-suite, CEOs, global CEOs, so team development stuff, through to the spiritual development in Bali. And, I feel like we've danced, if it were a continuum, we've danced the whole continuum, right, of coaching. How is that important to you? How do you hold that? What would you like to say about the sheer extent of energies with which you've taught coaching and coached?
Yeah. For me personally, this diversity of being able to be with a very serious strategic CEO who is a system evolver and has an amazing, brilliant, systematic mind, which is quite linear, and being able to sit with that and coach that and seeing that system transformation, and then at the same time moving in one of the retreats that you run when you are in a depth of Bali and you're doing a deeper transformational spiritual journey when people are becoming awakened to who they are, what they are, why they're here on this planet, what is their core purpose, what is their core mission beyond, just having this job. It's equally important. And I think it's a lot of fun when we able, for me personally, when I'm able to exist in both worlds. Because even though they're different, they're still interconnected, and one will not be able to exist with another one. And that CEO might end up going to that transformational journey, and then somebody from that transformational journey can say, well, I need to become a CEO of the company, and my job here actually in this planet is system evolution, and the only way how I can do it is if I become a corporate employee within these big systems and structures. So for me, that's a gift, being able to be in all of those realities, and I really enjoyed that. I really, honestly, I think it's a also challenge, for coaches to be able to maneuver and shift, how they coach and how they operate, how they relate, but at the same time, it's a big gift.
Yeah, and I hear so many coaches who sort of work in one end or the other almost, that have judgments about the other, that and I know that for our work with the Evolutionary Coach Training Programme, let's talk about that for a bit, because that's a program we co-created that has all of our life's work around coaching, at different stages depending on where you come into it. There, so we have that emotional intelligence that is required in order for you to hold space for another human being. If you can't hold your own emotions, you can't be a safe human for somebody else. And we have the rigor of the core coaching competencies, we have neuroscience, we have all those things, and then we have these beautiful evolutionary principles, which for me, just like, that's what holds together particularly all these different aspects. And even if we're doing sort of pure coaching, or if we're using what we know as a coach to train or to teach or to run a retreat or something, these evolutionary principles hold everything together because they hold us together as humanity.
Yes.
So could you talk to people a little bit about the evolutionary principles?
Yeah, I think that, as you said, beautiful statements that we invite people to uphold if they resonate with them, and principles that will help them navigate to the complexities of our life. And the first one, it's like we create and co-create our reality, which is a very strong principle. And when sometimes people get challenged by that, because it requires people to step into the creational relationship with their life. So what do you mean I create and co-create our reality? And I think that for me, how we came to that, Lisa, together in our co-creation, is that we saw that the ultimate impact of coaching on somebody's life and business is that they step into that creational power. And as a result of being and witnessing coaching, they now understand, wow, I am in creational seat. I can co-create this. I understand how I create this. And I understand that I'm responsible for all this in a good way. And I can own my life. And for me, that's one of these activation points in coaching when people really feel that. Because if they do, there is no stopping them. You can create literally anything. So I think this is one of the important principles that we teach. And I think it's absolutely amazing. And the other one that goes hand in hand, and we're just going to talk about 2, and we have 11 in total, is that everything in life happens to support you to grow, evolve, and to become best possible version of yourself. For me, that principle liberated me on so many different challenges I had in my life. When we can get stuck in the situation, but why is this happening to me? You know, why is this negative thing happening to me? Even for some people, why is this positive thing happening to me? You know what I mean? It can be both. I'm too lucky, you know, like, why am I too lucky? Why do I have all these opportunities? I feel guilty because nobody around me has this, you know, like flow in life, and everybody's struggling, only me, you know, it can be that. Or I'm trying too hard and my life sucks, you know, I'm doing so much and I'm never going to receive the benefits. So when we get into that principle, everything in your life is there to support you to grow, evolve, and learn, then you begin understanding those soul lessons, the life lessons, the things that life will bring you through people, circumstances, challenges, opportunities where you need to learn something about yourself and master that part in order to move forward. And ultimately, it gets you out of being victim forever. And for me in my life, when I really began living that principle, I've stopped being a victim forever. And so whatever happens, it's not a spiritual bypass. Oh, why is this happening? It's I really look into this. What is this for in my life right now? This situation, that person, this supermarket conflict, you know, in the morning, or somebody doing the random act of kindness, you know, what is that for? How interesting is that? What is that? What am I remembering? What am I learning from it? And I think when we live life with those two principles aligned to them, it becomes, I wouldn't say easier, it becomes more creational, it becomes more interesting, it becomes more juicy, you know, it becomes more, you know, like, things begin having a different meaning, and it's great to coach from that space.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, when you say easier, maybe not easier, I feel like it's almost more challenging and easier life, because when something happens, for me, this was the most empowering thing I ever learned in my whole life, honestly, because now when something happens to me, I can say, that's fascinating. Why did I create that? You know, what am I trying to teach myself? What does my soul want me to, my human, to remember through this? So it's super challenging in terms of we get to take responsibility for everything, not blame. It's just pure co-creation with the universe. Why did I co-create this? And life does feel much easier because we don't get stuck in things in the same way. And I think,
but you see how wonderful you are when you say that, because when you ask those questions, you know, how did I create that? You know, for the audience to understand that we need to get into the certain level of ownership, you know, like, and humbleness, that you understand that this is your creation, even if it's something that you don't want to see in your life, it's still your creation in a certain way. You know what I mean? But for that, we need to be big. We need to be big and strong and solid and able to relax in that. Yeah.
And I love what you're saying. Like, it's not just about holding the things that seem to go wrong. It's about holding the magic. I remember you and I stood on the steps of that chateau in the countryside just outside Paris, and there were people doing coaching practice all across the lawns and in the gazebo, and from a, you know, pretty hardcore corporate culture. And you remember there was a llama that kept, it was so surreal, there was a llama that kept wandering around and scaring people as they walked around corners. And I remember you said to me, like, look what we created, look what you did. And I remember just bursting into tears and saying, but I feel like such a bad mother. I feel like I should be home baking bread. And there was this moment in there where you saw me, you held me into stepping into a level of power that had me not just take responsibility for what goes wrong in my life, for the lessons, but also the magic. And the more you grow your capacity to hold your magic, the more magic you can create, the more positively and consciously you can co-create with the universe.
Yes, I remember that. It was such a beautiful creation, but you created it. It was so lovely to witness. And when we come from that space of we create and co-create our reality, and we give that, if we evoke that awareness, if you were to kind of look into the ICF core coaching competence, evoking that awareness coming from that space, then people can begin seeing their reality completely differently. And they begin like, just didn't happen, like that. That was part of my creative process in my own life, that I would end up in this amazing place, an amazing chateau with llama running around, with people practicing coaching, being quirky and funny and exciting and luxurious and interesting. It's just like beautiful to witness. And then when you witness, in my experience, when we acknowledge that in a coaching space or in our own life, then life, that for me, it's a sentient, alive, will say, oh, you got it. It was your creation. What are you going to create next? Let's play more, because we have to validate as well. We have to be able to witness our own creations with a full mindful presence.
Yeah. And when we do that, the universe, how can I help?
Yeah, exactly. How can I help?
Finally, you're open to me sending your help. And I think, there are so many coaching schools that teach the core coaching competencies. There are spiritual development courses that teach you we create our own reality. What I'm so proud of us for doing is bringing those together so powerfully to be able to help coaches in training to really understand what does it actually mean? It's not just some kind of, people talk about the phrase woo-woo, right? It's not some fluffy thing that we create our own reality. It's a solid process that, as you say, sits within that evokes awareness. And I think that's something that we land beautifully together.
Yeah. And that merge of practical and esoterical, the mysticism of the life, how really life works with the practical application in coaching, how to live and embody that. I think that absolutely. I think we've done a very good job with that.
I love talking about this. It just makes me even happier with what we co-created.
Yes. Beautiful.
And then to have I think in coaching as well, there's a lot of conversation about, it's never about how you do it. It's about who you are when you're coaching. And other people are like, no, it's about how you do it. And again, I think we really bring that together, because the tools, the toolkit that we bring to awareness, right, of recognizing how does a limiting belief show up? What does a values clash sound like when the coachee's not going to come and say, I have a values clash. They're going to say, my boss is an idiot, or they're going to complain that they're stuck. They're not going to say, I have this repeating limiting belief.
Exactly.
And this is where I think the core coaching competencies are so underrated by so many people, because they give us the tools and the awareness to look for the tools for this work.
Yes. Yeah, I love that, the awareness to look for the tools for this specific piece of work. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, it needs to be what we learn in China, you and I, it's the Tao and the Shu, right? I think that's a wonderful concept. And I guess, this is something that we keep on teaching and coaching other people to do, the Tao, the bigger mystical understanding of life and the consciousness and how everything works, and the Shu, the practical, how do you do this in this reality right now? So I think that merger of yin and yang and Tao and Shu is something that it's necessary for coaching, because it's equally important who you are as a coach and how you do it as a coach. And we put emphasis on both. It's not only that you need to become that version of yourself and then forget about tools, something will just happen. You need to know the tools. You need to know how to make shoes. If you're a shoemaker, you need to sit down and make beautiful shoes and know how to model them and make them comfortable, instead of just, what I mean? There's a tool, there's a skill, instead of fantasizing that you're the best shoemaker in the world. So it's a combination of both.
Definitely. And I think this duality shows up in so much of mastery and coaching. So I see people who are shadow workers, people who are light workers, and actually this dance between moving towards the light, creating an amazing vision. How will you change the world? And then being able to recognize that somebody is being held back by their shadow. and to effortlessly switch into moving the shadow through, not for the sake of the exploration, but for the sake of the momentum and the breakthrough. You know, again, I think that's something that we bring together so beautifully in evolutionary coaching.
Yeah. Breakthrough. And I think that shadow aspect of ourselves, we need to address it. I had difficulties with that for a long time. I didn't want to look into it, but then the time came that I didn't have any choice. So I think it's better to look into it as soon as you can. And that's one of the part of the evolution of journeys, us freeing ourselves from those shadows consistently.
Yeah. And almost sort of, I feel like at each level we get to, then maybe there's another shadow, or there was a corner of the shadow we didn't see. So to be able to move in an agile manner between moving forward, checking, noticing a shadow quickly, you know, as you start to move, noticing that tension, recognizing that's a shadow, sitting and smiling into the shadow, looking for what's the gift in the shadow, take the shadow and incorporate it. Then I think when we have this level of agility, we can move so fast, when moving fast is the perfect thing.
Yes. When moving fast is the perfect thing.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not.
Yeah, sometimes it's not. I love how you say that. I just think that's such a beautiful way to express it.
Oh. So, Zoran, you know, like, because we sometimes do talk about these things for 5 days in a row.
Yes.
So, and I know we've been talking about things for 20 years in a row as well. So I feel like we need to sort of draw this up really, and leave people wanting more. So what are the top 3 keys for mastering coaching? I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. But you know, if you would like, how would you like to draw this conversation to a close?
Yeah. For me, again, if you go backwards to the mastery of coaching, you know, one of the keys that I mentioned, I think it's really relevant up to this time. This right now, we're recording in 2022. Maybe people are going to listen to this in 10 years' time. They're going to be like, wow, it's still relevant. But I feel it's relevant right now. It's that presencing, embodied presence, you know, practicing mindfulness and mindful coaching to the level that you can really, really, really be present without any thought in your mind right now, right here, as much as you can throughout the day. So for me, that's the key. And then showing up inside of the coaching practice empty and present, so that you can really, really authentically relate the coachee and allow the questions, allow the comments, allow direct communication, allow metaphors or mirroring to come naturally from the deeper state of who you really are in your own mastery as a coach, not from the state of just thinking about what is the most intelligent question to ask. It may be that, you know, maybe the most intelligent, but also feeling the coachee. And we can do that through this embodied presence. And for me, this is what I'm practicing nowadays. And I think it's extremely important for people to practice. And then the other one that we may be going to touch in further future podcasts is that activation of the super skills, you know, activating your own mastery and becoming aware, what is your mastery? What are the skills that you have, that you love, that nobody else has? You know, what are the new skills that you are figuring out and developing, and then being playful around that? Because I literally think that the way how we coach today in 2022 and maybe how we're going to coach in 10 years time is going to be different, because we will simply become initiated on a different level of mastery ourselves. And, you know, maybe you and I will have a telepathic conversation right now, and people will tune in without needing to listen to our voices. They will be able to listen to that, and I will coach you telepathically. You never know, you know what I mean? So activating that level of mastery, it's very, very important, because that's why our souls are called for coaching, not to only help other people, to be of service to others, but also to activate ourselves. So I would leave it like that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think even now, to hear the words, but to hear the energetic transmission,
Mhm.
you know, I think you could listen to this at any speed and not hear the words and pick up an energetic transmission and feel your DNA tingle a little bit at this level of conversation
Mhm.
about coaching.
Mhm.
So we will pop some details, of course, in the show notes, but tell people what's the best way for them to come and find you, because I know they're going to want more
Yeah, I
information.
have two social media, Zoran Todorovic, one on Instagram. It's very active. My personal website is zorantodorovic.space, and then the professional website is tnmcoaching.com. So any of those three portals, I'm more than willing to engage. There are certain things that I share sometimes. Sometimes I'm more active, sometimes I'm less, but it's good platforms to learn more.
Okay, so thank you so much. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to share this conversation. I'm really excited to listen back as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, it's joy and honor to play with you, to be in your field. We jokingly always say it for the listeners when Lisa and I co-facilitating together that she's a true master and just a baby assistant. But on a certain level, it's true. So you hold that space of the mastery so well. So I'm really grateful to be with you today and to share with your audience.
Oh, thank you. I love you dearly. I cannot wait to play again next week together.
Yeah.